What job hunters and people looking for a job typically don't realize that their nonverbal communication cues, like their posture, their eye contact, all of those things can hurt the chance of getting a job. And if you can't control these traits, they outweigh your good ones. Uh, things like if you're prepared, you put it on a week where you're completely free, things of that nature. If you smell good, you look good. It won't matter if your nonverbal communication cues aren't attentive or well enough for the employee to take you seriously. Now, a common scenario is you go to a job interview, right? You prepared weeks for it. You put it on a week where you're completely free, and you go to that job interview. You prepare for it. However, during that interview, you are looking around too much. You're not really looking at the employer too much. You're fidgety with your hands. You're slouchy. All those things are being represented in the interview. And then days go by, right? You don't receive a phone call. And you're wondering, okay, maybe I didn't get that interview. Maybe I didn't get that job, right? Why is that? Why does that happen to us? What job hunters don't realize is that the employers aren't just looking at you and having conversations with you. They are looking at everything you're doing, They're looking at if you spin your chair around, if you're moving your hands too much, if you're just looking around the room when the guy is talking to you, things of that nature can be reported and conducted during the interview. A recent UNT study showed that most employers would reject employees based on the interview due to reporting poor nonverbal communication cues like poor eye contact, bad posture, and horrible handshakes. You could be shaking it too fast or gripping too hard, and the employer would be like, okay, based on the handshake alone, I'm writing this in the report, and I'm saying this guy's too overly excited. He feels overpowered in this position. We might have to go with somebody else that understands their rank and knows what they are with this position. The HR department and the employer who conducted the interview, all of them would know that completely just based on the interview themselves and go with another candidate. Look, we're all people. We all need jobs, and we are all going to need an interview to get one. When we go to these interviews, we need to make sure we have control over those nonverbal communication cues. They're real important so that we don't lead people to have, a bad impression based on, what we do when we get nervous or, we feel overly excited. It just happens. We're all people. We make mistakes. And one of those quotes is understanding looks can be deceiving, right? You could look nice, but you could be mean. You could look mean, but you could be nice. Those things go both ways. And, you want people to understand the real you before they even pass judgment based on the way you look. You don't want people to think that, right? Now that we understand how nonverbal communication cues and traits can affect negative impacts in these job opportunities, in these job interviews, let's see some strategies on how to help us successfully secure that job position.